There are moments in wrestling that stop time. Moments where the arena falls silent, where fans forget everything else, and where history feels like it's happening right in front of their eyes. On September 5th, 2025, one of those moments happened. CM Punk, a man who fought his way back into WWE after nearly a decade away, stood beaten and broken in the ring. Seth Rollins had retained the World Heavyweight Championship at Clash in Paris. Becky Lynch, the woman known as The Man, had struck Punk with a low blow that sent shockwaves through the wrestling world. And yet, the true shock was still to come, because out of that chaos, out of that heartbreak, out of that betrayal, came a chant that felt almost impossible. A chant fans hadn't dared to scream in 10 long years. And then, she came. AJ Lee, skipping down the ramp. The Black Widow, the woman who once carried the entire women's division on her back when WWE didn't believe in it. The woman who left in 2015 and swore she was done with wrestling. The woman who told the world she had moved on. Now, in the year 2025, she was back. But here's the truth fans aren't ready for. This return wasn't just about nostalgia. It wasn't just about reuniting with CM Punk. It wasn't even about unfinished business with Becky Lynch or Seth Rollins. The truth is much deeper, much more emotional, and in some ways, much darker. To understand why this moment hit so hard, we have to go back. AJ Lee wasn't supposed to make it in WWE. She was 5'2", under 120 pounds, and she didn't fit the mold of the Divas era. WWE at the time wanted models who could wrestle just enough to get through a match. They wanted looks first, wrestling second. AJ didn't care. She was different. She grew up poor in New Jersey, sometimes sleeping on the floor of motels. She used wrestling as her escape, idolizing Lita and dreaming of one day stepping into a WWE ring. When she finally made it, she broke the mold. She wasn't the biggest, she wasn't the strongest, but she was the smartest, the sharpest, the most passionate. Fans connected to her because she felt real. When she cried, it felt real. When she laughed, it felt real. When she turned on Daniel Bryan, or kissed Kane, or slapped John Cena, or taunted CM Punk, it all felt authentic. She wasn't playing a character, she was the character. And by the time she retired in 2015, AJ Lee had become a 3-time Divas champion, the longest reigning in history at the time, and the most popular woman on the roster. But then, she was gone. AJ Lee retired at just 28 years old. She was in her prime. She could have wrestled another decade, but the reality was simple. She was tired. Tired of injuries, tired of the politics, tired of a system that didn't value women the way it should. Behind the curtain, AJ was fighting a battle most fans didn't know about. She had been open about her bipolar disorder. She had been open about her struggles with self-worth. Wrestling gave her purpose, but it also took a toll on her. When CM Punk walked out of WWE in 2014, AJ stayed for a little while longer, but it was clear that her future wasn't inside a ring anymore. She had told her stories, she had proven her point, and so, after WrestleMania 31, she retired. For 10 years, AJ Lee never wrestled again. She wrote a best-selling memoir, Crazy is My Superpower. She worked as an advocate for mental health. She became a screenwriter, a producer, an activist. She seemed happy. She seemed done. So when rumors of her return started surfacing in late 2024 and early 2025, most fans laughed them off. AJ Lee? Back in WWE? Never gonna happen. And honestly, nobody could blame them. But then, Clash in Paris happened. Seth Rollins and CM Punk went to war for the World Heavyweight Championship. It was brutal, emotional, personal. And then, at the worst moment possible, Becky Lynch low-blowed Punk, costing him the match. The betrayal cut deep. It wasn't just about Punk losing. It was about the way he lost. And that's when the signs started showing up on Monday Night Raw. Fans holding posters that read, "Punk, bring back AJ Lee." And in that moment, the internet exploded. Speculation began. Could AJ really come back? Backstage, WWE's creative team pushed harder than ever before. According to multiple reports, Triple H was open to the idea. For years, AJ's name had been off the table, but now the timing felt perfect. CM Punk was back, Becky Lynch had turned her back on the fans, Seth Rollins was hated more than ever, and the women's division needed a spark. That spark was AJ Lee. But here's the part fans weren't ready for. AJ didn't just step back into WWE because it was fun. She didn't return just to be Punk's partner. She came back because of what those 10 years away had taught her. In that time, she found her voice outside the ring. She spoke openly about living with bipolar disorder. She spoke about abuse, about shame, about survival. She told her story in a way that gave thousands of fans courage to tell their own. When AJ Lee walked away in 2015, she was a wrestler. When she came back in 2025, she was something much more powerful. She was a symbol of resilience, a symbol of defiance, a symbol of never letting the world tell you what you can or can't be. That's why this return hit different. That's why the crowd in Chicago that night lost their minds. Because it wasn't just AJ Lee coming back to wrestling. It was AJ Lee coming back to finish the story. The rumors were out there. The chants had started. But in wrestling, rumors don't always mean reality. Fans had been burned before. CM Punk was never coming back, until one day he did. Edge was done forever, until the impossible happened. And now, AJ Lee's name was being whispered in arenas again. But whispers aren't enough. For a return like this, the buildup had to be slow, subtle. It had to feel almost unreal, until it was undeniable. Behind the curtain, the wheels were turning. Reports started leaking from sources close to WWE. For years, AJ's return had been pitched by writers only to be rejected. Vince McMahon didn't see the value. AJ had left on her own terms. She was associated with Punk, who had a very public falling out with WWE in 2014. But 2025 was different. Vince was no longer the decision maker. Triple H had taken control creatively, and he understood what AJ represented. This wasn't just about bringing back a legend. This was about rewriting history. For years, fans had debated whether AJ would even fit in today's women's division. After all, the division had changed so much since she left. Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, all these names had defined a new era. But Triple H saw the bigger picture. AJ wasn't coming back to fit in. She was coming back to remind the world that she was ahead of her time. That everything fans loved about women's wrestling today, the intensity, the storytelling, the authenticity, AJ was doing it years before it was cool. AJ Lee had been gone for a decade, 10 years without a single match, 10 years without a single WWE appearance. That time away created a myth around her. Fans who were kids when AJ left were now adults. For them, AJ was a piece of their childhood, a reminder of when they first fell in love with wrestling. For older fans, she symbolized a bridge between the Divas era and the women's evolution. She carried the division on her shoulders when nobody else wanted to. She spoke up when nobody else dared. The truth is, absence doesn't just make the heart grow fonder. Absence builds legends. And after 10 years, AJ Lee wasn't just a wrestler. She was an icon. Why this return felt different? Not every comeback hits the same. Sometimes nostalgia doesn't live up to reality. But AJ's return felt different for one reason. She didn't need to come back. Financially, she was secure. Creatively, she had projects outside wrestling. Personally, she had found peace with CM Punk and her life away from the spotlight. So why now? The answer is layered. Part of it was Punk. He had unfinished business in WWE, and Becky Lynch's betrayal gave AJ a perfect doorway back into the story. Part of it was timing. WWE had changed. Triple H valued storytelling. The women's division wasn't treated like filler anymore. AJ wouldn't be asked to stand in the background. She would be placed front and center. And part of it was personal. AJ had always said that wrestling was her first love. Maybe she wasn't done with that love story after all. In the main event segment, Becky Lynch came out. She was cocky, smiling, rubbing salt in the wound after what she did at Clash in Paris. The boos were deafening. She thrived in it. Becky held a microphone and mocked Punk, mocking the city of Chicago itself. She said the words that pushed the crowd over the edge.
How dare you chant another person's name while I am standing in this ring?
The crowd erupted with rage. Then CM Punk's music hit. The arena exploded. The hometown hero walked out, but something was different. Punk wasn't smiling. He wasn't smirking. He looked tired, angry. He climbed into the ring face to face with Becky. She dared him to hit her. She begged him to fight, but Punk shook his head.
I would never put my hands on a lady.
The crowd groaned, knowing Punk wouldn't lay a hand on Becky. The disrespect was too much. And then, it happened. A familiar theme song blasted through the speakers. Let's light it up! The arena shook. For the first time in 10 years, AJ Lee's music hit in a WWE arena. The camera panned across the crowd, fans screaming, and then she appeared. Skipping down the ramp, just like she always had. Same smile, same fire in her eyes. AJ Lee was home. The crowd's reaction was deafening. The kind of reaction that only happens once in a generation. Becky Lynch's face told the story. Shock, fear, and maybe even a little panic. Punk stood frozen, wide-eyed, almost not believing it himself. AJ slid into the ring. She stared at Becky for a moment, and then she attacked. The crowd went insane as AJ landed a forearm, then another. Becky staggered, caught completely off guard. AJ unleashed years of pent-up anger in just 30 seconds. She took Becky down and pummeled her with fists. The crowd counted along with every strike. Becky scrambled, rolling out of the ring. She screamed back at AJ, but the damage was done. AJ stood tall in the center of the ring, fists raised, hair wild, fire in her eyes. Punk looked at her. The fans chanted louder than ever. It was real. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't a tease. AJ Lee was back in WWE. The segment ended, but the story was only beginning. But what made this return so powerful wasn't just the action. It was what it symbolized. AJ Lee didn't just come back to WWE. She came back on her own terms. After 10 years of silence, after a decade of living her life outside the ring, she chose the moment. She chose the place. She chose to stand by Punk in her hometown and take down Becky Lynch in front of the loudest crowd possible. And in that moment, one thing was clear. AJ Lee wasn't just back for nostalgia. She was back for war. But as powerful as that night was, it was only the beginning. Because the truth behind AJ's return isn't just about one surprise attack. It's about 10 years of pain, survival, and strength. And it's about the one thing she still has left to prove. The night AJ Lee returned wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of something bigger. Because when AJ and Punk stood side by side in that Chicago ring, one thing became crystal clear. WWE now has the most dangerous power couple in wrestling history. Reunited. And the entire wrestling world is asking the same question. What happens next? When Becky Lynch taunted Punk and mocked AJ, she planted the seed for something fans have been dreaming about for years. Becky isn't just any superstar. She's the man. She's the face of women's wrestling in WWE today. And standing by her side, her husband, Seth Rollins, the visionary, one of the greatest champions of this era. Now, imagine AJ Lee and CM Punk standing across the ring from Seth and Becky. That's not just a match, that's a war. So what should fans expect from AJ Lee's return? The answer is simple: chaos, passion, and matches that will leave fans breathless. AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch, one-on-one, will be a dream match that defines eras. The Divas era versus the Women's Revolution. Two icons, both with something to prove. And when CM Punk and Seth Rollins finally collide in the same story, with championships on the line, that's not just a wrestling feud. That's personal history exploding on live TV. Put it all together, and you get something WWE has never truly done before. A mixed tag power feud with two of the biggest couples in wrestling. The championship stakes. This isn't just about bragging rights. The stakes are higher. Becky Lynch currently holds gold. Seth Rollins has been the face of championship matches for years, and WWE doesn't tease a story like this without raising the stakes even further. Fans are already buzzing about one possibility: CM Punk versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch for the Women's Championship, and eventually, a massive pay-per-view main event, Punk and AJ versus Seth and Becky. Titles, legacy, pride, all on the line. But underneath all the dream matches and fantasy booking, there's something more powerful driving this story: redemption. AJ Lee walked away from WWE in 2015 feeling unheard, unappreciated, and broken down by the system. CM Punk left even earlier, scarred by his battles with management. Now, in 2025, they've both come back, not just for themselves, not just for nostalgia, but to prove that they still belong. And there's no bigger test than going up against WWE's modern-day power couple. Seth and Becky aren't just champions. They're the measuring stick. They're the standard. If AJ and Punk can take them down, it would rewrite everything. AJ Lee's return has already shaken the WWE Universe to its core. But what comes next? Her battles with Becky Lynch, Punk's war with Seth Rollins, and the possibility of WWE's most explosive mixed tag rivalry ever. That's the story fans aren't ready for. And now, I want to hear from you. Do you think AJ Lee and CM Punk can actually take down Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins? Or are WWE's power couple too strong to fall? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is a story that belongs to all of us. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter in this story. Because trust me, it's only just beginning.